I want you to go through verses 4 through 7 and underline how many times Jesus tells us we can do nothing apart from Him. Take your pen, if it's okay with you, underline it, and then I'm going to ask you where it is. It's an assignment. Good.
Jonathan, give us a pen.
Okay, time's up. How many times did you underline that thought in these verses? 4. Ooh, 4. Really? 4? Okay, good. 3? 4? He says it in different ways. Why do you think Jesus would repeat that so many times? Probably because he wants you to learn that you can't do anything by yourself. I think Rob talked about it the other day. He talked about our wonderful overhead projector. Right now, if I press the power button, is anything going to happen with the overhead projector?
No.
Blow up.
You sure?
Go in.
You're positive?
Yeah.
Nothing happened. Why?
It's not plugged in.
It's not plugged in. It's not plugged into the power source. That's the same way with us. If we decide we're not going to have any relationship whatsoever with God, we're not going to be connected to God whatsoever, we're not going to produce any fruit. And what does Jesus say in these verses? The branch is good for it in verse 6 if it decides to not abide in the trunk. If anyone does not abide in me, he's thrown away like a branch and withers. The branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. Basically, Jesus is saying, you're not worth anything. You're not doing anything for me. You're worthless. Kind of like we talked about the stink berries. God doesn't want us to be stink berries. God doesn't want us to just be dead branches lying on the side of the vineyard. He wants us to be connected to Him. Connection. Okay. So, we're going to look at a specific example that illustrates for us what we're talking about here when we say abide, live with, remain. We're going to look at Luke chapter 10, verse 38. Luke chapter 10. Everyone turn there. Luke 10. This was a story of a man named Whitman. This is a story that we probably know pretty well. We heard when we were little kids, like this tall, in children's church, when the teacher got out the flannel graph, and she put up some people by the name of Jesus, Mary, and Martha. Probably already know where we're going. Luke chapter 10, we're going to start at verse 38. Now as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village. Where did He enter? A village. Good. Are you listening? Are you reading? Are you following along? Luke chapter 10, because I'm going to keep asking you questions until you start following along. He entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed Him into her house. What was the woman's name, Colby?
Martha.
Ooh. You start reading.
I don't have a Bible. Yes, too.
Well, I told you if you needed a Bible, I could give you one. Luke chapter 10, verse 38. Okay, so in the story so far, since you guys aren't listening, I'm going to be really repetitive and annoying until you start listening.
Village and Martha.
Village and Martha. All right? Verse 39. And she had a sister called Mary. Kobe, what was your sister's name?
Mary.
Mary, all right. So start listening. Who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to His teaching, unlike you are doing today. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she went up to Him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion which will not be taken away from her. Okay, So what was Martha doing? Serving. Very good. Was that a good thing? Yes, serving is good. Helping people out when they come over to your house, giving them some brownies, making some pot roast. It's good stuff. Was it the best thing that Martha could do at the time?
No.
No. Why? Well, Jesus says it, for one. Jesus says, that's not the best thing you can do. The best thing you can do is do what your sister Mary is doing. Sit here, spend time with me, sit at my feet, listen to my teaching. Let me talk to you. You can respond. You can talk back to me. Talk back to me. Respond to me, I should say. He says, this one thing is necessary, and Mary chose the better thing. So that's kind of illustrating what we need to do in our lives. We can get so caught up in doing these good works. We can get so caught up in, I need to serve in the nursery. I need to greet at the door. I need to help the old women across the parking lot. I need to come to church. And I'm just doing. All I'm doing is actions, actions, and actions. Just like the Pharisees. We just want to do actions. But we never have a true relationship with God. We become like Martha. We're running around like a chicken with our head cut off. But we're not sitting down, taking time to meditate with God, to spend time with Him, to be connected to Him. That's the important thing that Jesus says is here in this verse. Let's go back to John chapter 15. We talked about, a few weeks back, the Great Commission. This is your number one responsibility as a Christian. If I were to ask you, what's your number one responsibility as a Christian? Do you think this would be your answer? No, probably not. Most people would say, my number one responsibility as a Christian, maybe do the right thing all the time. My number one responsibility as a Christian might be go to church. Some people would say that. Or go to confession. Some people might say that. Or the list goes on and on. God tells us our number one responsibility as a Christian, the thing that you should be spending all of your energy and time in, the majority of your time, money, whatever, should be spent in your relationship with God, remaining, abiding, living with Him. So this is important. It's our Great Commission, as we keep saying. Oh, I forgot to say that when Jesus talks about the fact that we have no ability to do anything in ourselves, just thought I'd like to throw this in there. It's a freebie. The word that He uses is the word dunamis. Sounds pretty cool. What does that sound like to you? What word does that sound like in English? Sounds like duty. Dude. What? No? How about if I say it different? Dynamis. What's it sound like now? Dynamite. Yeah, he's talking about dynamite. Now dynamite has a lot of power, right? It has the power to explode a huge mountain and to level it into a plain. If you have enough dynamite, I should say. It has the power to, like you saw in the Kansas City bombing, it has the power to level a building. It's very powerful. And God says that's the kind of power that we can utilize, that we can harness into if we decide to have a good connection with Him. Okay, so where am I at in my lesson here? It's always been God's plan to abide with us. In Genesis, what did God do with Adam and Eve in the garden?